Today, we uncover the uncomfortable truth about the milk sold in UK supermarkets. And I'm not talking about use-by dates or whether you should buy semi-skimmed or full fat. I'm talking about something far more significant that most people never think about. Two companies, Arla and Muller, process roughly 50 to 60% of all liquid milk sold through UK supermarkets. That means when you buy Tesco own-brand milk, Asda own-brand milk, or Aldi own-brand milk, there's a very good chance it was processed by one of these two companies from a shared pool of farms. The labels are different, but the processing pipeline is often the same. Arla, the Danish-owned dairy cooperative, processes own-brand milk for Aldi, Asda and Morrisons. Muller processes for Lidl, Sainsbury's and Tesco.
Between them, they determine what ends up in your fridge. And here's the part they really don't want you thinking about. In January 2026, Arla cut the price it pays British dairy farmers to 35.73 pence per litre. For many farms, that's at or below the cost of production, which typically runs between 40 and 49 pence per litre. Farmers were literally losing money on every litre they produced. Arla has since adjusted the price slightly upward to 35.83 pence in May 2026, but the damage was already done, and the price still sits well below what many farmers need to break even. Meanwhile, supermarkets are selling that same milk to you at retail prices often 3 to 4 times higher than what the farmer received. And here's the kicker. Most people assume that all milk is basically the same. Just milk. What could possibly be different between a Tesco bottle and a Waitrose bottle? Well, as it turns out, quite a lot. The welfare standards the cows live under, whether they have access to pasture, what they're fed, whether routine antibiotics are part of the system, and even what feed additives are being trialled. All of that changes depending on which bottle you pick up, and the supermarkets are counting on the fact that you never think to ask.
Now, I'm not telling you to stop drinking milk. That's something I'd never do. I love milk. A proper cup of tea without good milk is a crime in my book. And I'm not here to tell you that milk is dangerous or that you should switch to oat milk or anything like that. I'll leave that to the doctors. But what I am telling you is there's a meaningful difference between the milk you're buying from one supermarket to the next, even though it all looks the same sitting in the fridge aisle. If you've ever had milk straight from a local farm, the kind where you can actually see the cows out in the field, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The richness, the taste, the colour, it's noticeably different from what comes in most standard supermarket bottles. And while all supermarket milk meets legal safety and quality standards, the welfare conditions and farming practices vary enormously. So we've gone through the major brands and own-label products currently sold in UK supermarkets, and we'll expose the 6 milk products you need to avoid, plus a couple of mid-tier surprises that might actually shock you. Then I'll tell you the handful which are actually still worth buying.
But before we get into all of that, I need your help. If this video resonates with you, if you think more people need to know what's really going on with our food supply, then please hit that hype button. Not just the like button, the hype button. Because when you hype this video, YouTube pushes it to more people. More people see the truth. More people stop getting misled by vague packaging. And when enough of us push back, when enough of us demand better, these companies have no choice but to raise their standards. That's how change happens. It's not just about you making better choices for your family. It's about all of us, together, pushing the industry to be more transparent. So, hype this video, share it, and let's make some noise. Let's start with something most people don't realise. You assume that supermarket own-brand milk comes from different farms than the branded stuff. In most cases, it doesn't. The milk is pooled. Arla and Muller collect milk from hundreds of farms across the UK, pool it at processing plants, and then package it under whatever label the supermarket has ordered. Now, that doesn't mean every single bottle is literally identical. Different contracts and farms can have varying standards, but the general supply chain, the processing infrastructure, and the baseline farming conditions are largely shared. Both companies have been criticised by organisations like the Ethical Consumer and campaign groups like Viva for welfare practices within their supply chains. Both companies have zero grazing systems as part of their operations, which means some cows in their supply chain never go outside. They spend their entire lives indoors. And yet, the packaging on the milk they produce often features images of green fields and happy cows grazing under blue sky. That disconnect between the marketing image and the reality of the supply chain is one of the biggest problems in the UK dairy industry. Now, not every farm in the Arla or Muller supply chain is zero grazing. Many farms do have pasture access, but the point is that when you buy standard own brand milk, you have no way of knowing whether your specific bottle came from a farm where cows graze outside or one where they never see daylight. The label doesn't tell you, and the supermarket isn't required to tell you. And here's something else the industry doesn't often discuss openly. The average dairy cow in the UK is culled at around 5 to 6 years of age. Dairy cows can naturally live to 20 or more years, but the intense demands of modern milk production mean most are retired from the herd much earlier. This isn't unique to any one company, it's an industry-wide reality driven by the economics of milk production. When a cow's milk yield drops below profitable levels, she's typically sent for slaughter. And when a dairy cow gives birth, her calf is usually removed within 24 to 72 hours. Female calves typically enter the dairy system. Male calves are often sold for beef or veal, though practices vary. This happens across the entire dairy industry, conventional, free-range, and most organic systems. Some higher welfare farms have begun cow-with-calf programs, but they remain a tiny minority.
Now, let's talk about what actually matters when you're choosing milk. There are really only 3 things you need to look for. First, is it organic? Organic milk in the UK means the cows must have access to pasture whenever weather permits, they must be fed an organic diet with no GMO feed, and there can be no routine use of antibiotics. The Soil Association, which is the UK's leading organic certifier, goes beyond the legal minimum for organic and requires that cows spend a significant amount of time outdoors, often exceeding 200 days a year. That's a genuine, meaningful standard. Second, is it from a named farm or cooperative with transparent welfare policies? Generic own-brand milk tells you nothing about which farm it came from or how the cows were treated. Third, what does the label actually say versus what it implies? Words like farm fresh, countryside, and natural have no regulated definition on dairy packaging. They're marketing language, not welfare standards. If the label doesn't say organic or free-range or pasture-raised with a verifiable certification behind it, you simply can't assume the cows had outdoor access. And here's one that's important to understand. After Brexit, the UK introduced its own rules on farm antibiotic use in May 2024. These rules ban the routine use of antibiotics on farm animals and specifically prohibit their use to compensate for poor hygiene or inadequate animal husbandry. That's a positive step. However, groups like the Alliance to Save Our Antibiotics have criticised the UK version as being less stringent than the equivalent EU regulations that came into force in 2022. The key difference is that the EU explicitly banned group prophylaxis, which is the practice of dosing entire groups of healthy animals with antibiotics to prevent disease. The UK regulations didn't include that blanket ban. The UK's Veterinary Medicines Directorate has said a complete ban on prophylaxis could harm animal welfare in some circumstances, but critics argue it leaves a loophole that allows some farms to continue routine group dosing. It's also worth noting that many supermarket own brand policies on antibiotics go beyond the legal minimum, but those policies typically only apply to own brand products, not to branded products on the same shelf. Now, let's get to the products. Here are the 6 milk products you need to avoid in UK supermarkets right now.
Number 6. Asda Standard Own Brand Milk. You'll find this in every Asda in the country. It's one of the cheapest milks on the shelf and millions of people buy it every week. Asda's standard own brand milk is processed by Arla. That means it comes from Arla's general pool of farms, which includes both pasture-based and indoor systems. Asda's standard range has no specific higher welfare commitments beyond the basic legal minimum. There's no pasture pledge, there's no organic certification, there's no premium welfare assurance scheme. It's the baseline of what's legally required, packaged in a bottle that looks identical to every other milk in the fridge. And the farmer who produced this milk was for the first months of 2026 being paid a price that was at or below their cost of production. Asda has not been among the leaders in addressing the dairy farmer payment crisis. If you're buying the cheapest Asda milk, you're buying into a system that prioritises cost over everything else. Avoid. Number 5. Aldi Cowbell Standard Own Brand Milk. Aldi positions itself as the smart shopper's supermarket, and to be fair, in many categories, they genuinely deliver on quality at low prices. But their standard own brand milk is also processed by Arla. Same processor, same general supply pool, same questions about welfare standards. And here's what makes this one worth calling out. Aldi was one of the 3 supermarkets named in Arla's 2024 Bovaer trial, where a methane-reducing feed additive called Bovaer was given to dairy cows on 30 trial farms. Now let me be clear about Bovaer. The FSA has approved it as safe. The European Food Safety Authority has approved it. It's been used commercially in other countries, and importantly, it doesn't enter the milk. It's broken down in the cow's digestive system. The science, as it currently stands, says Bovaer is safe for consumers. The issue isn't the safety of the additive, the issue is transparency. The trial was publicly announced by Arla and the supermarkets, so it wasn't a secret, but there's no label on the milk bottle telling you whether it came from a Bovaer trial farm or not. At the point of purchase, you have no way of knowing. And when the trial was announced, the public backlash was enormous. Thousands of people filmed themselves pouring Arla products down the drain. Trustpilot reviews for Arla collapsed. Whether the reaction was proportionate to the actual risk is debatable, but the strength of feeling about transparency in the food supply was very real. Avoid. Number 4. Lidl Meadow Fresh Standard Own Brand Milk. Same structural issue, different supermarket. Lidl's standard own brand milk is processed by Muller. And here's what catches my eye about this one. The name, Meadow Fresh. That word meadow conjures images of cows grazing in open fields under blue sky. But there's no meadow requirement attached to this product. It's a brand name, not a welfare promise. It's the equivalent of calling any mass-produced product by the idyllic name to make you feel better about buying it. Lidl has made some commitments to improving welfare standards over time, and to their credit, they've engaged with some industry initiatives, but their standard own brand milk remains at the baseline of regulatory compliance. No pasture guarantee, no organic standard, no premium welfare assurance. Avoid. Number 3. Tesco Standard Own Brand Milk. Tesco is the UK's biggest supermarket. They sell more milk than anyone else, and their standard own brand milk is processed by Muller. The reason Tesco appears this high on the list isn't just about the milk itself, it's about what Tesco could be doing versus what they're actually doing. They have the purchasing power to demand higher welfare standards across their entire supply chain. They could insist on pasture access for all dairy cows supplying their own brand range. They have the scale to shift the industry. Instead, their standard range sits at the legal minimum. And Tesco has form for making public commitments and then falling short. Their cage-free egg pledge, for example, committed them to going fully cage-free by 2025. As of 2026, they're still selling enriched cage eggs, and they stopped reporting their progress on the commitment, which tells you something. When a company of that size goes quiet on a public pledge, it usually means the numbers aren't where they promised. If you're buying standard Tesco milk, you're buying into the same industrial processing system with no premium welfare layer on top. Avoid. Number 2. Arla Cravendale. Now, this one might surprise you because Cravendale is positioned as a premium milk. You pay more for it, it lasts longer, it's filtered. The marketing makes you feel like you're making the better choice. And to be fair, the filtration process is real and genuine. Cravendale uses microfiltration, where milk is forced through ceramic pores to remove more bacteria than standard pasteurization, giving it a longer lifespan, up to 45 days unopened, compared to about 2 weeks for standard milk, without adding any preservatives. Nothing is added to the milk. The process is simply a very fine physical filter. That part is legitimate. But here's where the premium image falls apart. The cows producing Cravendale milk are in the same Arla supply pool as the cows producing Asda's cheapest own-brand milk. The microfiltration happens at the processing plant after the milk has already been collected. It doesn't change what happened on the farm. The welfare conditions, the feeding practices, whether the cows had outdoor access, all of that is the same general Arla supply chain. You're paying a premium for a processing technique, not for better farming. It's like putting standard wine through an expensive decanting process and charging twice the price. The vineyard is the same, and Cravendale sits within the Arla brand family that faced the Bovaer backlash, with the same transparency questions applying. Add to that the Trustpilot reviews for Arla, which are sitting at very low ratings with thousands of negative reviews driven by the Bovaer controversy, and the picture becomes clear. Cravendale is premium processing applied to standard milk, marketed as if the entire product is premium. It's not. Avoid. Number 1. Morrisons Standard Own Brand Milk. And here we are at number 1. Morrisons Standard Own Brand Milk is processed by Arla, making it part of the same supply chain as Asda and Aldi. But what brings Morrisons to the top of this list is the combination of factors that came together in early 2026. First, Morrisons was one of the 3 supermarkets directly involved in the Arla Bovaer trial, so the same transparency concerns apply. Second, Morrisons was part of the system during the overproduction crisis in early 2026, when surplus milk was literally being poured away because processors couldn't sell it fast enough. Now, to be clear, the milk disposal problem wasn't unique to Morrisons. It was an industry-wide issue, driven by a roughly 5% surge in production that the market couldn't absorb. But the fact remains that cows across the supply chain were being pushed to produce at maximum capacity while surplus milk was being dumped. It's the combination of everything: a supply chain trialling feed additives, overproduction leading to waste, farmers being paid below cost, and a supermarket sitting at the end of that chain selling you the result at full retail price with a label that tells you nothing about any of it. That's not a failure at one point in the system, it's a systemic problem, and Morrisons Standard Own Brand Milk sits right in the middle of all of it. Avoid.
Now, before we get to the good stuff, let's talk about 2 supermarkets that might actually surprise you: Marks & Spencer's and Sainsbury's. Most people think M&S is overpriced and Sainsbury's is just another supermarket, but when it comes to milk, both of them are genuinely doing things differently. M&S has one of the strongest dairy welfare programs among major UK retailers. Their milk consistently scores well in independent taste comparisons, and their dairy policy includes meaningful pasture commitments that exceed the industry baseline. Waitrose leads on this front overall, but M&S is closer to Waitrose's standards than most people realise.
And Sainsbury's, particularly in their Taste the Difference and organic ranges, use separate supply chains with higher welfare commitments and named farm groups. Their standard own brand ranges are still mass-produced through conventional channels, so the same caveats apply. But if you're willing to reach for their premium tiers, you're getting a genuinely different product. Don't get it twisted, though. Their cheapest own brand ranges are still baseline. It's the premium lines where the difference lives. So, what should you actually be buying? Let me give you the good stuff. These are the milks worth your money. First, Waitrose Duchy Organic Milk. This is one of the best picks you can make at any mainstream supermarket. Duchy Organic is certified by the Soil Association, which is the UK's most rigorous organic certification body. The cows must have access to pasture when conditions allow, which in practice means the majority of the year. They must be fed a certified organic diet with no GMO feed. Routine antibiotics are prohibited, and the Soil Association standard requires outdoor grazing that significantly exceeds the basic legal minimum for organic production. Waitrose itself has also led on dairy welfare beyond the organic range. Their standard milk already requires a minimum of 183 days of grazing, which is more than most other supermarkets demand. But the Duchy Organic range adds full organic certification, lower stocking densities, and genuinely higher welfare standards on top of that. The milk is richer, creamier, and has a depth of flavor that reflects the pasture-based diet. Yes, it costs more. Organic milk is typically around 25 to 40% more expensive than standard, depending on the retailer. But when the price difference per litre is often less than 30 pence, and you're getting genuinely better welfare, higher omega-3 content, as confirmed by multiple studies, including a major 2016 meta-analysis of 170 published studies, and milk that tastes the way milk is supposed to, it's worth considering. Second, Yo Valley Organic Milk. Yo Valley is the largest organic dairy producer in the UK, holding around 65% of the UK organic milk market. They're a family-owned business based in Somerset that's been operating since the 1970s. Their cows graze on clover-rich pasture, and the brand has been awarded the Good Dairy Award by Compassion in World Farming, recognizing their animal welfare standards. It's worth noting that Yo Valley's fresh milk is actually produced by Arla under organic standards, so while the processing involves the same company we've been discussing, the farming standards are set by organic certification rules, not by Arla's conventional supply chain. That's an important distinction. Organic certification means the welfare requirements are externally audited and independently verified, regardless of who processes the milk. You'll find Yo Valley Organic Milk at Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, and most major supermarkets. It's widely available, reasonably priced for organic, and it's one of the few mainstream brands where the marketing promise and the farming reality actually align. Third, your local farm or milk delivery service. This is the option that changes everything if you have access to it. The best milk you can buy in the UK is often not in a supermarket at all. It's from a local farm or dairy that delivers to your door. Services like Milk and More still operate across much of the UK, delivering milk in glass bottles from farms with named herds and published welfare practices. Local farm shops and farmers' markets are another option. You can often find farms where you can see the cows yourself on real pasture, producing milk at a pace that isn't driven by industry targets. The price per litre is often comparable to premium supermarket milk, especially when you factor in glass bottle return systems that reduce waste. And the taste difference is the thing that converts people permanently. Once you've had milk from a local farm where the cows spend their lives grazing on grass, supermarket milk tastes noticeably thinner. It's the difference between a tomato grown in soil in the sun and one grown hydroponically under fluorescent lights. Both are technically tomatoes, but only one tastes like it.
One last thing I need to mention, because it's something the industry would rather you didn't think too hard about. UK dairy farming is under severe pressure. In the first months of 2026, farm gate prices from major buyers dropped to levels that were at or below the cost of production for many farms. While prices have since edged slightly upward, the structural problem remains. At the same time, overproduction became so severe that surplus milk was being disposed of because the market couldn't absorb it. Cows pushed to produce at maximum capacity, and some of that milk going to waste. There's been a long-term decline in the number of dairy farms in the UK. A decade ago, there were over 21,000 dairy farms in England, Scotland and Wales. That number has been falling steadily year on year as smaller farms are squeezed out by the economics of industrial production. And in a 2021 survey by the Agriculture and Horticulture Development Board, 48% of UK consumers said they were concerned about artificial hormones in farm animals and antibiotics entering their food, but only 30% were aware that growth hormones are actually already banned in UK farming. People are worried about the wrong things because the industry hasn't been transparent about the real issues. The real issues aren't hormones, which are already prohibited. The real issues are the welfare conditions in intensive systems, farmers being paid unsustainable prices, routine antibiotic use in some conventional farming operations, and an industrial model that treats milk as a commodity to be produced as cheaply as possible. So, that's the truth about UK supermarket milk. If you can get milk from a local farm or dairy delivery where you know how the cows are kept, that'll always be your best option. If you're shopping in supermarkets, go organic if your budget allows. Soil Association certification is the gold standard. Waitrose Duchy and Yo Valley are the two strongest picks on mainstream supermarket shelves. And if organic is out of your budget, look for supermarkets with published pasture commitments and named welfare schemes. Avoid the cheapest standard own brand milk from the major supermarkets where you have no visibility of the farming conditions behind it. If this video helped you, if you learnt something, if you want more people to understand what's really behind the labels, then smash that hype button right now. Hype it. Don't just like it, because the hype button pushes this video to more people. And the more people who see this, the harder it is for the industry to keep operating without scrutiny. Leave me a comment and tell me what food or product we should investigate next, because I'm going to keep doing videos like this, and I want to know what matters to you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that now, because there's a lot more coming. Until next time, keep asking questions, because the labels won't ask them for you.